What's up, everybody? Welcome to SWAT MMA, where we're smoking weed. We're talking mixed martial arts. This is episode 136. I'm Jarrod here with Paul.
What up?
Coming to you from the fight capital of the world, Las Vegas, Nevada. Today, we're going to be smoking and talking all about the results of UFC 275. We're going to take a look ahead to the UFC Fight Night Houston, featuring Qatar versus Emmett as the main event. We're going to discuss BKFC's results from the Jackson Fight Night, and as well as a massive, massive fight announcement from Bare Knuckle Fighting Championships, probably their biggest fight announcements in their short history. We'll be discussing that and everything else right after we get into the weed of the week.
Smoke weed every day.
This week, got a couple show favorites on here. We're bringing back the Georgia Pie, which is Kush mints crossed with gelati. And you know, they say this is supposed to taste and smell like peach cobbler. Do you have an opinion of that shit? I mean, do you get any fruity peach flavor out of this thing? I mean, I like it. The weed is bomb.
I've had it before, but I've never really heard that. I have to go back into my mind that's full of drugs.
We're about to spark this joint up here and check it for sure. But we also got the Blue Dream back today, which is, sorry, not Blue Dream Haze, which is a cross of Super Silver Haze and Blue Dream. One of our favorites here on the show. No packs, no concentrates today, nothing but flour.
I guess.
And we're sparking up this Georgia Pie fucking
I don't know
joint right now.
See, I always think it's weird when people say that shit about weed. It's like, oh yeah, it tastes like this, and this. I'm like, yeah.
Bro, I've been
Does it,
smoking
though?
weed over 20 fucking years.
There's some
There's some.
but like,
Dude, it's the real terpene heavy strains,
Yeah.
like Tropicana cookies, things like that. They got the real heavy, like orange flavors or citrus flavors that you can't help but taste. But
that's where I feel like usually that's where the flavors that you could usually like pull. It's always funny to me when people like talk about like other like it's always like the citrus or like any of those like lemony kind of tastes. Like,
yeah,
shit like
yeah,
that.
you can get a lot of lemon and shit too,
Yeah.
for sure.
But like when people are like, yeah, it tastes like coffee beans and oak. I'm like,
Right,
the
and dark
fuck are you
chocolate.
talking
It
about?
doesn't, bro.
It tastes like
I don't really care what people are saying.
Yeah.
That's psychosomatic.
exactly.
Like, there's real strong terpene flavors in some, and sometimes there's that diesel jet fuel kind of flavor,
Yeah.
and those are the main two. I mean, everything else is so subjective, and I think psychosomatic. You're pulling out of there whatever you fucking are thinking,
Yeah.
just like wine.
Mm-hmm. Tastes like cherry blossoms.
Yeah, cherry blossoms finished in oak wood with a hint of lavender oil. Like, motherfucker, no, it don't.
Tastes like weed.
Because then once you say that, though, like if you're in a group of people and you're all smoking, and somebody's like, "Oh, it tastes like this," and then somebody smokes it, and they're looking for that. Oh yeah, I taste it too. Yeah, like you know how it goes. But whatever you're smoking on out there, folks, we hope it's good, delicious, and on its way to being legal if it's not already. So we're going to get started here on UFC, who put on a pretty damn good pay-per-view this past weekend. Paul, we had 2 title fights at the top. We had a very important strawweight rematch in the women's division, and a pretty decent preliminary card all the way around. But like usual here with the UFC, we were unable to escape the weekend without some controversy, one way or the other, with judging. You know, you were saying earlier how that's kind of become the norm on these fight cards, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's now become like this. It's almost like a rivalry between the commentary team and the judging booth or whatever the fuck you want to call it. But it's now become more about like I'm seeing more and more often going into the end of these fights, the round by round judging as far as like from the commentary team is like being said, well, that round was real close, but I think so and so did X, Y, and Z to win it. I would hope. Like,
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
yeah.
That's like kind of how they're phrasing it now. It's more like, oh, well, we're not exactly sure how these fights are going to be judged, but we'll tell you how we would judge them. And that's fine. but it's the like constant ridicule of the judging that now has created this like two-sided thing where
Yeah, and
every
it's
fan hates the judges and every fan thinks the judges are incompetent, which a lot of them unfortunately are, but I feel like it's created this weird dynamic now.
yeah, exactly, bro. Part of that problem gets exacerbated a lot when you have somebody as influential as Joe Rogan say something on his podcast that shows a complete and utter lack of knowledge about the rules. Like, did you catch what he was saying on the show earlier?
Yeah, he basically said something that was exactly what it already was. He was talking about the judging criteria and what should be,
Yeah.
like how fights should be judged round by round, and like he literally laid out what exactly.
Yeah, the problem with that is all his genius ideas that Joe Rogan lays out on his show are the exact scoring changes that were made in 2016.
But here's the problem, and we brought this up since the beginning as well, is those same judging, like that same judging criteria, when you go state to state to state to state, you're getting 4 to 5 different kind of criteria for the judging and what is exactly like based as higher point scoring.
Yeah, as a prime example, like the the Nevada State Athletic Commission uses a hybrid mix of the old rules and the new rules, which is
what
it illustrates just a major problem in MMA. I mean, we can't even get together and agree. Like the Nevada State Athletic Commission is supposed to be the pinnacle of state athletic commissions, and it's the one that the majority of all the others look to for guidance. Like whatever they're doing here is what they're going to do elsewhere. It's not a written rule, but it's just kind of the way it goes, right? And so when you have these guys with that type of influence and that type of fucking knowledge doing crazy shit, like taking a hybrid system of rules and having that be like the mixture,
well, it's not
it just exacerbates the problem.
Well, it's not even that too. It's also you have like all these different commissions that don't exist when you have fight cards like this weekend. Because you're in Singapore, like there's certain fights where we go overseas for the UFC. Some of them are not exactly as regulated as some of the fights that we see, like when they go to Florida, New York,
Right.
Vegas, stuff like that.
I think the UFC was its own commission here.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like 90% of the time when they go overseas, they kind of oversee it.
It's ridiculous. So we've got commissions that have slightly different rules in each different location when it comes to judging and what's going on. We've got commentators that literally don't know the judging criteria, who then proceed to judge or score fights themselves and then share those scores with the viewing audience, which really influences public opinion. Like Daniel Cormier saying that Valentina Shevchenko was down 3-0 guaranteed on the scorecards when she wasn't. And it just results in a great big mess. Like what you said, where now it feels like there's an actual like rivalry where the commentating team feels like they have to point out all the inaccuracies of judging each and every event. Or
they're not doing the fans justice. I feel like that's part of it too. Like I feel like they feel like this almost need and like this higher moral stand ground to be like, well, if this fight was judged the right way, Holly Holm would have won. Or you know what I mean? Like just to use that as an example, over like the last few weeks is like that was a real big like hot button for that whole week after that fight card was how not necessarily that Holly was screwed, but if the judging was done the right way, it wouldn't have been as close, or they would have had Holly winning. And it's like those kind of scenarios, albeit you have to call them out when they're blatantly bad. When you call them out when they're just like, you know what I mean? Like this is what I mean. Like with even this Valentina fight is like it was all this uproar online, but I also was like a little bit of like, it was pretty solid to see that Valentina had won 3 rounds and Talia won 2, even if I don't know how Daniel Cormier saw it 3-0, but
I don't either. But it's the whole thing is just resulting in a giant disservice, and it's one that could be fucking easily remedied because no one's asking guys like Joe Rogan or Daniel Cormier to go memorize the criteria. Dude, it's on the UFC website. You can print it up.
Yeah. Not only that, if they're gonna do that, do something like boxing does, where it's like, okay, this is, you know how they'll do it, like Andre Ward. It's unofficial scorecard of what he has at the commentary desk.
Yeah.
If you did something like that, I think would kind of bridge the gap and then also show that like that's Daniel Cormier's opinion. That
Right.
the way they do it right now, it kind of makes it seem like it's a fact that this person should have won the fight, and it's now the judge's fault for creating a bullshit winner of the fight. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Whereas you could easily remedy this by going, this is our live Daniel Cormier's corner scorecard or whatever the fuck you
You make
wanna
sure
do.
Daniel Cormier has reasons that match the scoring criteria for his
Yeah.
fucking shit. Like, I guarantee you Andre Ward knows why he's scoring about, say, 10-8
Yeah.
or 10-9.
Mhm.
He's like, this is why A, B, and C happened.
Yeah. Well,
Daniel
that's the thing
Cormier
too.
doesn't know shit.
Well, not only that, but it's like it's okay to think Talia won the fight. Like you can think that, but that doesn't mean that they got it wrong. That's the difference. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, that's true.
you can think anybody has won a close fight, but you also can't then discredit the judges for not having that person winning the fight. You know, because judging is, obviously human at the end of the day.
Yeah, it is
And
subjective.
it's super subjective. And you can accept you thinking another person won the fight, but you then not you being like a commentator like Daniel Cormier or even like Paul Felder and everyone that was on that Holly Holm card, where like they harped on it in the post-fight press conference. They harped on it on the post-fight show.
Yeah.
They harped on it during the broadcast. And it's like, okay, so you can feel that way, Paul Felder, DC, or any of the other guys who are on the commentary team, but what they need to stop doing is they need to stop then turning around unless it's egregious. Like these close fights, you can't harp on them. The ones that are really, really bad, those are okay. But
Right.
like that Holly Holm one was not that bad. This one this weekend was not that bad.
No.
Like there was like pros and cons and where places where you could have seen how they had it that way. Okay, and it's not that they're because that's what I feel like was when I watched the broadcast and I watched the post show, and at the end of the post show, instead of talking about how Valentina showed she's one of like just like the greatest women's fighters of all time, that even somebody who had her in the deepest of deep water and almost had her lose her belt, which nobody saw coming, that's more what they should be talking about, is how she was able to face adversity head on and win the fight.
Right.
But what they do instead is they go, well, did you see how Talia Santos won 2 rounds? And honestly, she probably on my scorecard she won the fight. I don't know what they were judging, and like stupid comments like that.
Yeah.
Then creates this narrative that they're incompetent and you know everything and you're right.
Yeah, if you don't know what they were judging, then go print up the criteria that they're judging on and then compare it to what they fucking got.
Or
I
like
mean,
the show the
I'm sick of
stats
it.
or something. Like if you're, it's just this like
I'm tired of
whole
it. These
narrative.
guys are fucking paid. Like, I get it when you talk about when there's egregious scoring and we talk about it. But this, like you just said, this daily, now this weekly fucking shit. If Daniel Cormier and guys like Dan Hardy and these, so it's not just UFC guys. Dan Hardy's pretty vocal about that stuff, even with refereeing. Why don't you go judge fights then? Why don't you go do what they got to do, which is start at the low levels and work your fucking way up?
And that's honestly, I
Oh,
think,
because you don't get paid.
well, I think at the end
I'm
of the
just
day,
saying.
that is the solution to both your reffing and judging problem in these major MMA organizations, is to have people that are like former fighters and even on the referee side of things, but the referee side of things and the judging side of things. I would like to. I mean, that's the only problem at the end of the day. It's a thankless job, and it's doesn't pay you shit.
Well, let's shift into the actual fight itself while we're on it, because the Shevchenko versus Talia Santos. So Shevchenko retains her title with a split decision win. One judge had it 47-48 for Santos, the other had it 48-47 and 49-46, both for Shevchenko. The 49-46 seems to have some people upset. Although I did read, there's a good articles out there where people go over it and rewatch the fight, and some of them are changing their scores to 48-46 as well. There's actually a decent handful of MMA sites that had that same score. I don't think that's as egregious as people think. I may disagree with it, but I don't think it's nuts.
Yeah.
I find it a little more surprising that we're not talking about how somebody could have scored that fight as a win for Santos. I don't see the win there for her. I see the victory for Shevchenko. But
well, that's what happened. It was clear as day that that Shevchenko was winning the later rounds of that fight. The first and second, I think Talia just did something that she just didn't think was gonna happen to her. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like her ability, because I'll give Talia a lot of credit. Her ability to transition from position to position was the reason she had Valentina where she had her in both those rounds, on her back, working for the choke. But after that, it was pretty obvious that it was a lot of combinations being landed by Valentina and a lot of Talia just kind of eating them. But she was throwing back, which is why people feel like, oh, maybe you could have gave her the third round. But I thought it's pretty obvious that it was 3-2.
I thought it was as well. And I mean, in the stats, stats don't tell the story of the whole fight, but they do mean something.
Yeah.
So, I mean, let's go ahead and take a look at the statistics of the fight overall. You know, for the fight as a whole, significant strike, 77 for Shevchenko, 55 for Santos. If you go round by round, round one, significant strikes, you've got 10 landed for Shevchenko, 5 for Santos. Round 2, 7, Shevchenko, 4 for Santos. Round 3, 17 for Shevchenko, 7 for Santos. Pretty close in round 4 was 29-28, advantage Shevchenko, and then finally in the fifth round, 14-11. The takedowns were equal at 3 apiece. Santos did have 3 submission attempts to 1 from Shevchenko. If you just look at those, it's a pretty dominant victory, but that's not what we saw unfold in the fight, though. It was not a dominant victory. It was a close fight. I thought it was clearly a Shevchenko win, and I'm glad to see her get tested in this manner because she did make a mistake, which led to that control in the first round. Like, she was going for a takedown, and then she, like, stumbled and fell down and wound up with Santos on top of her. And then, she's not making too big of a deal about it, but it appears she did have some kind of foot injury as well, which is why, for instance, she didn't do her traditional dance she does after every victory. Her foot apparently is injured. I don't have any more details about that, but it's good to see, I think, these long-term champions get tested in this manner. I really don't see the controversy here. I don't really want to see a rematch at this particular moment.
Yeah, not at this moment, but it's not like off the board as far as like ever again.
No.
I think Santos goes in and maybe wins 2 more fights, like against like a 4 and a 3 or like a 2 and a 5 in the division.
Yeah,
like she's back in the title shot. Because this fight was close enough that it's not forever off the table. Talia is still super young, and Valentina's doesn't look like she's slowing down anytime soon as far as like dominance outside of Santos. So I don't want to see it right away, but I do want to see it again eventually.
No, the last thing we need is an immediate rematch. I'm actually a little bit more interested in seeing the possibility of Shevchenko challenge for a different belt.
That'd be cool too.
She's talking about 135 again. I think at this point she's earned the right, to do something like that.
Yeah. And there's vested interest there too. Pena and her had fought in the past. It was a pretty close fight, and then Shevchenko ends up submitting her. So it's like that. There's storyline. There's that storyline. There's everything that I mean, outside of Nunes being champion too, because we can't forget also that she has to beat Nunes again before we get that rematch, I guess.
And look, there's a fight there too if Nunes regains her belt.
Yeah.
I mean, Shevchenko, yes, there's 2 fights already, but they were extremely close. I don't think anyone would not be interested in the third. So, let's go ahead and talk about the fight that happened prior to this, which was in the women's strawweight division, where we saw 2 former champions face off in a 3-round battle rematch of Joanna Jędrzejczyk returning to the cage after over 800 days away, fighting Wally Zhang.
Yeah.
And it ended with a surprising knockout.
Yeah.
By Zhang. Jędrzejczyk just getting slept with a spinning back fist that she took mainly to the side, back of the head and neck area.
That was rough.
Yeah, she was unconscious.
That first round was rough too. Like it was really a interesting matchup, to be honest, because we talked about it before the fight a little bit over text, but I didn't realize that this was a 3-round fight. You know what I mean? Like I thought it was going to be 3-5 round. They've been doing that.
Yeah,
recently.
they've been doing that a minute.
Yeah, like the co-main events have been doing 5 rounds, and like that just seemed like it was on paper, seemed that like I was gonna go 5 more. You know what I mean? Because but that first round, it was real, like intense. You could tell that those were 2 different complete game plans. I
Yeah.
thought it was more Joanna trying to score and throw the numbers up. Whaley was trying to fucking kill Joanna from the bell, from the bell, and I really thought that was the difference in the fight because that ground and pound at the end of the first round, I really do think damaged Joanna, and I think it set her up to have to like kind of be in like a counter kind of situation because Whaley was coming on so hard that she just turned into like where before it was put up numbers and win the rounds on the punch stats, it turned into her doing a lot of countering and worrying about what Whaley was throwing at her and if she was going to get taken down. And I thought that was the difference in the fight, honestly.
And there was really nothing she could do to defend against that back fist. Whaley threw it at the perfect time. It came from behind her. You couldn't see it coming. There's no slipping it, blocking it. She didn't capitalize on a mistake made by young Jacek. Nothing. It was just... Dude, that's like taking a 2x4 to the back of the neck. You're fucking done.
It was a perfect shot.
It was absolutely
that knocks
a perfect
everyone
shot.
out.
Yeah,
I've never seen someone get knocked out.
Not to that part of your body.
Yeah,
you can't.
No,
that's why those
too.
types of punches aren't allowed. Like if you're straight on, like you can't punch somebody in boxing. There, you can't stand
Yeah.
behind somebody in MMA and punch them there.
It's the angles is the difference.
Yeah.
That's where the gray area is. That's what like Conor McGregor talked about when he knocked out Dustin Poirier. That like he hit him like right in the soft tissue, which would technically be in the back of your head, but when you're shifting over the corner, you can hit people. There's that gray area in the head and neck area where it's just.
If it was under different circumstances, it would be illegal. Like if, let's say, Whaley was mounted and Jacek flipped over to her stomach and she punched her in that exact same spot while on her back, that would have been an illegal blow. But there was nothing illegal about the way it landed in that. It was a beautiful thing.
So moving forward, though, I think she is going to fucking murder Carla Esparza.
Yeah, she gets the title shot against current champ Carla Esparza, who's still holding the belt after that snooze fest against Rose that she won it in. And yeah, after seeing her against Rose, I mean, no disrespect, we like Carla on this show, but damn, I think both of them. I think young Jacek would have fucked her up too, personally. But
that's a tough.
Whaley is gonna.
Well, now we're in this weird no man's land or no woman's land for the whole division. Because now, if Whaley wins the title, you have Rose who's beat her twice. You have like all these different like fights that have happened. If Joanna's for people who don't know at home, Joanna then retires after.
Yeah,
the fight.
Joanna retired in the ring afterwards.
But had she stayed, she stays or comes back or anything else happens in that way, like. You just have all these fights with a whole bunch of fighters who have like beat each other, lost to each other, beat each other, lost to each other, beat or lost to each other, and now it's just like who's the next one after Whaley is like what I don't understand. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Because the belt changed hands so many times.
Honestly, it'd be best for the division, in my opinion, if Carla would beat her, but I just think the chances of that are slim, slim to none.
Yeah. And what are you going to give Carla and Rose run it back again? Carla's already beat Rose twice now.
No, nobody wants to see that. Rose needs to figure out something for her career.
Yeah.
It's too many times. I mean, let's talk about Rose for a minute. How many times do we have to have the conversation? And I say this, dude, she's one of my absolute favorite fighters of all time. Yeah. Dude, your head's not in the game.
Yeah.
Like, when she's off her mental game, it's disastrous.
Yeah.
Like.
When the heat's on, that's when shit gets weird for her.
And she's been fairly open about those types of struggles, and it plays a real thing. And it's at some point you just gotta. Well, I mean, I wouldn't be mad if she retired, honestly.
Well, and it goes deeper than that though, because here's what I think of when I think of Rose Namajunas is I think of like she loves being in that underdog realm. Like when she is like the first time she fought Joanna, and everyone was like, Joanna's a killer. You're done. You know, you're fucked. Everything in that realm. That's when she steps up to the occasion. The second time, when everyone said, "Oh, the first time she beat Joanna, it was a fluke." Remember, like that was the main narrative. The 2 times they fought that she fought Joanna, that it was first was that Joanna was going to kill her the first fight. All of a sudden, the craziest knockout in the division's history it was seen as at that time. You know what I mean? And then the second time completely outpoints her because everyone said it was a fluke and you can't actually technically beat Joanna. Then she actually fights her in the second one. Everything was just perfect, everything laid out perfect for her.
Yeah.
But then you go into a fight like you do with like Carla Esparza, where you've lost to her before, but the general consensus on the outside world is this is your perfect time to get your payback.
Yeah.
And I feel like that when she shifted from the underdog mentality, but then she's the champion, those have always been her worst performances.
Dude, on paper, she has all the tools. She should have fucked up Carla.
Yeah.
She should have lit her up on the feet.
Yeah.
And stayed well out of takedown range. I mean,
Well, instead she just stayed out of takedown.
I mean, this is a woman who fucking murdered Wiley with that kick.
Yeah.
Like,
then technically beat her after that.
Yeah, I mean, she's a top tier fighter when she's on, but this head game is so bad for her. She's worse than Donald Cerrone with it.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, and that's the thing. It's took her to the highest and the highs, and now I think it's starting to like take her to the lowest and lows because it's like, well, you've now like gone through the general progression of like a championship career. Like like you had the title, you lost it, you come back, you win it back, you're on top of the world again, and that's where your longevity is supposed to start. Like at first, when it's like, you're a young champion, when the whole Andrade thing was crazy thing, like it was crazy that happened. Like,
yeah, when she got KO'd with that
Yeah.
neck spike thing. Yeah.
Crazy. So you move on to that, and it's like, well, now you're gonna fight Wei Li, who's now the real killer. Like you thought you were good, you thought Joanna was good. Watch this shit, and then she comes up as an underdog again, and then inserts herself back into that. But I feel like that's Rose's thing though. When she is the champ, and everyone views her as a champ, and everyone tells her how great she is, and tells she like has this weird confidence about herself, and then she doesn't perform. But that when she has no confidence in herself, and she has people around her that have to bring her up and tell her, you're the best in the world, and she does that whole thing where she's telling herself in the ring she's the best in the world. Those are the fights where she goes out and dominates. But when she's the one,
about right, bro.
Yeah, it's fucking. It's just a weird head game that like you would think at this point in her career that maybe she had shook, but it's like it's just now this whole division is in a weird spot now, and that fucking performance by Wei Li, like she's getting the title shot next, obviously.
Yeah, for sure. She's going to be fighting Carla Esparza, especially since nobody wants to see the Rose Carla rematch. So, and Joanna hopefully is going to ride off into the sunset and make some good money.
Gotta hope.
Which brings us to the main event, the 205-pound title, which changed hands. Who's our new champ now?
Yuri Prochazka.
Which is crazy. It's a crazy fight.
Very crazy fight.
He wins with a submission at 4 minutes and 32 seconds of round number 5. 28 seconds away from victory. Glover was ahead. It showed on all 3 scorecards. I thought that it was a great fight. A lot of back and forth.
Yeah, it was very momentum based. Like that was it was one of the weirdest fights I'd ever seen Glover fight.
I feel personally, and not taking anything away from Yuri, but I feel Glover gave him that fight. And I don't mean with the tap. I mean, there was 2 times in the last round where in my opinion, he had Yuri out. Like, it was it. All you had to do was keep punching. And he instead went for takedowns. And then one in particular, he was definitely close to being out on his feet. He grabs him around the neck, twists him down, and winds up with Yuri on top of him. Yeah. And Yuri just has complete time to recover. And then he kept rocking him on the feet after 1 or 2 punches and then driving in for a takedown. Yeah. And ultimately, that's what cost him the fight. I feel if he would have stayed standing and stopped with the 1-2 takedown, that he would have won. Not just on the decision. I think he could have KO'd him. And we were talking about it a little bit before the show. I guess it's muscle memory at some point. These guys get in there, it's the last round, you're exhausted. You do what you're trained to do, which is you throw some blows and you go for the takedown. Because them takedowns were retarded. Yeah. I'm sorry. As an outside observer watching it, like I thought that was the worst thing you could possibly be doing there. Like, fuck, bro.
Well, and that's what was so weird because earlier in the fight, his wrestling was what was the X factor, I thought, that was keeping him like atop each round. Like, like in the striking in the striking game, like him and Yuri, like Yuri never hit him with anything like super crazy like his other fights, but I thought it was pretty like similar as far as the pace of the fight. I thought Glover was getting the better of him, but like it wasn't ever that like Glover was just piecing Yuri up on the feet or anything. Yeah. But when we got to the ground is when we saw Glover had some of his best work, like the elbows that ended up splitting Yuri open, and then out of nowhere it would be like he'd get all this like momentum, and then out of nowhere there'd be like a random like scramble, and then Yuri would have him like full mount all of a sudden. It's like, what the fuck just happened? And like that happened like in 3 different rounds, and I just thought it was so strange. I'd never see, because if you really look at Glover as a whole, the like path to the title he took, a big part of what got him there was his wrestling and his ground and pound and his ability to control his opponent from the top. But in this fight, it was like every time he did something good on like in his like jujitsu, there'd be like these weird transitions where he would kind of give up, turtle up, and then end up in a weird fucking position on bottom. And it just wasn't his character or like what
No.
I've seen in the past from him, you know?
It's very unusual. It's a very strange fight. And after watching this fight, this is only the 3rd time that I've seen Yuri fight. It was his 3rd appearance in the UFC, and he did what he needed to do to win. And I'm not trying to throw shade at him when I said what I said earlier about Glover. He capitalized on those mistakes and turned them into his advantages, and then he subbed him.
Yeah.
But his style, I'm still not a believer that you can do that at the upper echelons of the UFC. His hands down, chin out too often, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I think that Risen is one thing, and he's got away with it here almost because Glover didn't finish him.
Yeah.
I don't know if he hangs on to this title. I haven't seen enough yet to know.
Yeah, there seems to be a lot of parity at light heavyweight at this point.
Like after seeing this, I think if John Jones was still the champ and this was like a #1 contender, John Jones would fucking murder him. I mean, I don't even think it would be competitive.
Yeah.
But that's irrelevant. Jones isn't here. Yuri's the champ. It's looking like Jan gets the shot next. What do you think of that matchup, Paul?
Yeah, that's the kind of fight I don't like stylistically for Yuri if he's going to continue to fight that way, because a big part of what Jan's whole thing is his power, and you don't drop your hands with someone who's got power like Jan.
And Jan has solid fundamentals, as in like hands up, chin low,
and you know they're not going to take each other down.
Most likely not.
No fucking way either of those guys are taking each other down. That fight is going to be on the feet, all for as many rounds as it goes. And I think that Jan will get the best of him because Yuri's style in general is going to be his downfall.
I think so, because that's what was leading, in my opinion, to Glover's success on the feet. Was Glover had fundamentals going on for me. He was throwing solid 1-2s from a basic, like boxing style defense. Your hands in tight, hands to your chin, while Yuri is wild.
Yeah.
And yes, that wildness has led to his success, but it's different when you hit the fucking cream of the crop here. And they're fundamentals for a reason.
Yeah.
Like you don't see guys like Yuri have these long sustained careers in other sports. Like if you go into boxing, yes, different sport, but it's just punching. You don't see wild men without fundamentals have crazy long successful careers for a reason. Because when you get to that tip top of the fucking cream of the crop, you just can't do it. There's reasons they're called fundamentals, and I just don't think he can do it. I think Jan's going to KO him if they fight.
Yeah. I see that too.
And I think anybody with a solid, fundamentally sound striking game beats the wild man most of the time at that top level.
Well, and that's the thing is, in all honesty, I hope he proves us wrong, because I think the light heavyweight division needs someone like him.
Fuck yeah, he's entertaining. And he's fun as shit to watch.
He's fun to watch. His videos are pretty good. Like, he's entertaining, and that's kind of what the division needs. So. Like, also, one big caveat to that whole title fight with him and Jan is that has to be somewhere in Europe. Like, that has to be.
Yes.
Like, that cannot be. Could not be in Vegas. like they need to take that over there, because that will sell out a soccer stadium or somewhere that high capacity seating. Because those two are now probably the two biggest. Like, did you see the homecoming that Yuri had yesterday?
No.
Fucking nuts.
Really?
Like Charles Oliveira level. Like, where like the whole town was like sitting there waiting for him to get off his plane. It was pretty sick.
Yeah, they'd be wise to take advantage of that.
That's what I'm saying. Like, yeah. You want to
Jan's
tap into that market now. You had Jan's popularity, and even Jan got. Did you fight Corey Anderson over there or something like that? Oh no, that was in Arizona.
He got a hero's welcome back home in Poland too.
Yeah, but I mean, he fought in Poland before. Is what I'm saying. So like, if you're able to secure that in Poland or fucking, I don't even know exactly which city he's from, the Czech Republic or something like that.
I think I'm not sure.
But yeah, somewhere in that region.
Plus,
it'll
both those guys speak
sell.
great English, so they have no problem translating that into U.S. pay-per-views
Yeah.
either.
And they're both funny, dude. Like
Yeah.
Jan has his little funny quirks where he tells
Yeah,
jokes and
he's
people
got a
talk
dry
shit to
sense of
him.
humor.
And then Yuri's the same way. Yuri's literally
No,
head is a
there's good
giant
money to be
yarmulke
made
with
if the
a
UFC gets on it.
ponytail.
Yeah.
Like, come on, this guy's a character, and he's wearing a kimono to the ring.
Well, I think that
It's lit.
rests UFC 275.
Yeah.
Let's take a quick jump ahead to the next fight night. Fight night Houston.
Oh, look at that!
Thank
in front
God.
of a crowd. Thank the Lord. A fight night in front of a crowd. This
Yeah.
one should be electric too. There's a lot of big punches, a lot of great fights on this card. I think.
Yeah, the crowd here makes a big difference. Thank God the UFC is venturing out of Vegas in the Apex. I can't do another one of these fucking 7 hours of no crowd fights.
Right.
So yeah, let's talk about. It's headlined by a pretty important featherweight bout between Calvin Qatar and Josh Emmett.
Yeah, this is a 3 versus 4 matchup, isn't it?
Josh has been out for a minute. He's 17-2.
Yeah, Josh isn't fine.
Calvin's
I think
23
his
and
last
5.
win was against Shane Burgos, but in that fight, he tore his ACL and MCL in the first round
Yeah.
of a 5-round fight and ends up pulling out the victory still. So like now he's kind of just been on the sideline waiting to come back, and this is a real big fight for him and Cater also, because this like Cater is just floated in like that like upper echelon of featherweights where he's fought Max Holloway and like Z.W.A.T and some of these like bigger names at 145, and now like Emmett is like on the rise. So like if Josh were to win this fight, that's going to be huge for him. But if Cater wins this fight, that puts him back in the conversation.
Yeah, he's back
for
in
a
the
title
conversation
shot.
after his loss to Holloway.
Yeah.
So Josh Emmett, though, I don't know if Calvin can take those power punches. Josh is pretty strong.
Yeah.
He hits a lot harder, I think, than like Max Holloway. Max is more of a volume striker.
Mm-hmm.
I like Josh.
I think Josh wins too. But...
Yeah, I think him coming off this, yeah, it was an injury break, but still, it gives you a chance to get more healed up.
Yeah.
And I like his work ethic, his power.
He's already got so many. Like, here's the one thing about this fight is I don't have any worries about how exciting this fight is, because you know what I mean. Because Josh and Calvin both have been in absolute wars in this division, and so like this one will not be short of anything but just electricity the whole fight, dude. Like it's gonna be nuts.
No, this is a great main event, and overall, this card is actually one of the stronger ones the UFC's put on. We complain a lot about some of the quality of the fight night card, especially these Vegas atrocities, bunch of no names, but this is pretty solid here. There's actually more name fighters on here than on the pay-per-view 275 from prior. Yeah, outside of the top, 3 fights. But I like Josh here. I think he's going to make a statement. He's been hovering so long, in the bottom half of the top 10, top 15, that I think this is his time to make a move. I mean, he's got a good amount of UFC fights right now. He's recovered from the injury. He's got that experience. He's got incredible power for his size. And I think he's going to go in and get the job done against Calvin.
Well, let's not forget, too, the UFC had him on the short list when they announced when Max was out of the title fight months back. It was him, Zombie, and Yair Rodriguez were the 3 people that were offered the fight. He accepted, Yair accepted, and Zombie accepted, and Volkanovski picked to fight
Zombie, yeah.
So, like, Josh is, like, really on the cusp of being in a title eliminator. I think this, at the end of the day, depending on how that Max Holloway and Volkanovski fight turns out, this could end up being a title eliminator for these 2 guys, because they're now on a short list for a title shot if they were to win this fight.
Yeah, especially in an impressive performance. I think that leans more for Josh than it does for Calvin, especially if we see Holloway win the title back.
Holloway wins.
But oh God,
if Holloway wins the title back and they run it a 4th time, I would.
That's why I have this pained look on my face right now.
I knew you did. Like it was like we were on the same wavelength. I knew exactly where you were going, bro.
God bless
don't even
those
put
2.
that out there.
God bless them. But if you run this a 4th time, I'm done. Fucking done with the featherweight.
They could fight 6 times, and literally there could be a different outcome all 6 times.
This just has to be it. And if it's Volkanovski loses, then you just have to eat it, bro.
Or win 2 fights after.
Win a couple. Just nothing immediate. You can't do it a fucking again. Moreno and Figueiredo, which that blew up in the UFC's face anyways, trying to fucking run that a fourth time.
Well,
Figueiredo's like, fuck off.
Yeah, but in the end, now it gets even more complicated because now you have an interim title between Moreno and Qatar France.
I know.
So it's like, fuck.
Fucking or Figueiredo out there going, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Yeah. They pulled an Ngannou on his ass.
They did. They ain't got the fuck out of him. But
dude, I like the co-main this week too. We had, a much anticipated fight between Joe Lauzon and Donald Cerrone get moved to this card. It is the co-main event. And we were really excited about this fight because we had Joe's teammate Carlos Lazoya on the show. We've had him on a couple times, but he came on. He's been training with Joe. He had a lot of interesting things to say, but then the fight didn't happen. But now here we are again, and let's revisit, some of the things that Carlos told us, some of your thoughts about where you think this fight goes. Do you think that either one of them gets an advantage with it being moved? I mean, we didn't hear anything about injuries or anything else, really.
Wasn't it like a COVID situation?
It was a COVID, as far as I know. Somebody's corner got COVID. No, I remember now. Donald Cerrone got food poisoned.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah.
I remember.
He was fucking puking and shit, but
Yep,
what are you going to do?
Remember exactly.
So there's no real injuries there. I don't think anybody gets an advantage by a couple more weeks of camp. These are a couple of veterans who know each other.
Yeah, I wouldn't think either of them would have like a super intense camp where it was like fucking their body up going 2 weeks later.
Man, I think these guys know well what they're getting into, and I would imagine that they're focused a lot on cardio.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. And then it's going to be a great fight. I don't know who I want to win. I'm more of a Cerrone fan, but that doesn't mean I dislike Joe Lauzon. I love that guy.
I'm leaning towards Joe on this one because I feel like Joe is a little less far gone than Donald is.
That's the thing, and it makes me sad to say it because I don't want Cerrone to keep going out on these losses. Like, it sucks. Like, as a fan, I would like him to not do a BJ Penn on us where he just fucks up his record at the end with all these fucking, L after L after L.
I mean, what's he at right now? 36-16.
Yeah, you want it to be 36-17. I mean,
2 no contests.
It's just getting too much, man.
A lot of fucking fights.
So I'm rooting.
Joe too, though, man. Joe's up there. Joe's got 28-16.
Yeah, I guess I feel more for Donald because he's much more of a fan favorite in the general public.
Yeah,
like MMA hardcores all love Joe, and I'm not dissing him, but the general public knows who the fuck Cowboy Cerrone is. The guy's in movies, he's in commercials. Cerrone's Lauzon's in Boston training and running his gym. No diss, just facts. And
no, that's not even a diss. That just speaks more to like that could be part of this fight. That could be the X factor. Is like Cowboy Cerrone is still fighting, but he also has kind of transitioned into life after fighting. Whereas Joe is more of like a lifetime mixed martial artist, and we're going to see him more. Like, if he retires, he's just going to run his gym.
Just did a big fucking Western with Gina Carano. It's either coming out next month or just came out this month or some shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, he's doing shit.
He's been doing shit, yeah.
Yeah. Which is good. And...
Well, yeah, you always got to... It's always
dude, I think Joe's... I guess, but my long-winded answer to all this shit is I wish it'd be Cerrone, but I think Joe's going to win, too.
Yeah.
And I think Cerrone's going to retire.
I would almost like, it'd be cool if both of them hung it up together after this fight because... Just in the past, I don't see, obviously, him and Cowboy are both badass motherfuckers, so I don't really foresee any, shit talk in the build-up.
These guys respect
so
each other.
I could totally see it would be cool as fuck if, Cowboy did, a Stone Cold, came out with a couple beers at the end, they both hang them up, drink a beer in the octagon together, and ride off into the sunset.
That would actually be hella cool, yeah. Should go out into town and have some drinks.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be dope. It's going to be a great fight, though, I hope. I hope it's not... sometimes we say that, and then it turns out to be like, ugh. But I don't think that's going to happen here.
Nah, that's an electric fight either way, I think.
But let's hit another banger here.
This one could have its own card, I thought.
Yeah, the number 3 fight on here, going down from the main, is a welterweight showdown between who?
Tim Means and Kevin Holland.
That's a nasty fight.
This is Kevin Holland's 3rd fight at 170, right?
He pulled some more fucking superhero shit the other day.
I saw that. He's a savage.
This guy's a fucking crime fighter out here.
Who's that kid? That cat who's in World Series of Fighting? Remember, he used to be a
Yeah,
superhero guy.
the Phoenix Sun or some shit, or
Yeah.
Phoenix, the Dark Phoenix, or I don't remember. It was something like that. But yeah, the dude who was like a legit put on a costume and go out and fight crime.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's like that
Sick ass
dude, but
fool.
no costume. But this is a great fight. Tim Dirty Bird Means is a scrappy guy. He's tall as fuck for welterweight. He's always in it to win it.
Him and Holland have a very similar build, I would think.
They do. They're both tall and lanky for this division, and both I feel could fight higher if they chose to. And Dirty Bird, I think, is aptly named because he's not a dirty fighter, but he's an old school veteran. Like that dude knows the tricks. He's fucking. Holland is still on the come up. You know, I think this is a good showdown between an old school veteran and a young, promising prospect. But it's not a gatekeeper type of thing here. It's just more of a.
I don't know if it's a gatekeeper thing, but it's more like of a leveling of matchups. You know what I mean? Like even the same thing when Holland knocked out Jacare. I didn't think Jacare was necessarily a gatekeeper at middleweight. I thought it was the UFC testing their prospects against varying talent.
I mean, Tim Means is a vet. This is his 45th MMA bout. I mean, he's 32-12 with 1 no contest. I mean, Kevin's got close to 30 here too. He's 22-7, but you know what I mean. Tim's a veteran. It's a great test, I think, for Kevin Holland.
Yeah, it's not even that Kevin's not as seasoned as he is. It's just Dirty Bird's been in the UFC for so long that we've seen him against all different competition. And this would be a good matchup to really see how Holland fits in this 170 pound weight class. Because I mean, at 85, he was pretty much in the title picture if you really look at it. Like, yeah, he had a couple stinkers where he got out wrestled and got a little bit beat up, but outside of that, he was hanging with every single person in the top, 15 to 20 at 185 pounds.
Yeah, and he also took out Jacare up there.
And he took out Jacare. Like,
fucked him up.
he has a lot of talent. He has a lot of weapons, and I think that that's going to ultimately be the difference in this fight. Is that not that he's just going to be head and shoulders like better than Tim Means, but I do think his ability to be like just so random in his striking and the power that he carries, I think it's gonna over be too much for Tim Means in the end.
Yeah, I think so too. I just think as long as Kevin's careful and he doesn't make any real obvious mistakes, because you make a mistake against Means, he's the type of guy that's going to recognize it when you do it and capitalize on it. So as long as he keeps his head about him, doesn't get too wild, and give opportunity to the Dirty Bird, I think he gets the victory here as well. And I expect it to be another just absolutely excellent
I think this will end up being fight of the night.
Yeah, that's a good.
Or one of them is getting a bonus. At the end.
Yeah, I feel that. We got Joaquin Buckley making his return on this card as well against Albert Durarev, if I'm saying that right. I'm not certain, but Joaquin Buckley, he's pretty famous still for that viral knockout that he had.
He's won 3 in a row. He's a quick turnaround for him too. He fought, I believe, 3 months ago. But this should be good for him. I mean, he's kind of in the same place that like Kevin Holland's at, where like he's at his ups and he's at his downs, he's at his viral moments, but he's had his tough fights, and like his UFC career is starting to rise up. But like he's just at a point where he's just getting tested every fight, and the test gets they
get harder and harder,
and it's really up to him how this turns out for him. That's why I like watching people like Buckley and Kevin Holland, because there has to be like a dog in you to want to be more and want to be like, in that upper echelon of fighters.
Oh yeah.
That like a lot of their fucking fights are just like gritty. You know what I mean? Like sometimes it's not the most technical, but like you can see that they always want it. You know what I mean? There's
you can see the
never
heart
a lack
on
of
display.
effort.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
For real. I feel it. There's a handful of other good fights on this fight night that we're not really going to touch on, but all in all, it's a real winner for the UFC on a free card, or free with ESPN Plus's $5 a month or whatever the hell it is. But a good fight night. Looking forward to that. Let's shift over though, Paul, before we wrap up the show, and talk about the Bare Knuckle Fighting Championships. We had an event as well as probably the craziest announcement the BKFC has ever made. Let's touch on the event first, which, we talked about last week. And let's just talk about the main event. That's really the highlight here, because it was pretty wild.
Yeah.
We had Alan Belcher with just a massive knockout against Hunt. But the knockout's weird though, right?
It was one of the weirdest things I've ever seen. He hits him with like a Rocky style, like spit of like, but it was like looked like his mouth was full of water almost. It was weird.
The amount of liquid that comes out of Hunt's mouth was so absurd. It's led to some conspiracy theories on the internet that it was some sort of fucking fix, and the BKFC asked him to fill his mouth with water to make the knockout look cool, which is absolutely absurd and certainly not what we're suggesting. But if you have a chance, you know, everyone listening, you can go to bkfc.com or to their Instagram and catch a video of this knockout. And yeah, it would appear like the only thing I could think, dude, there's two things happening. That's so much water. It's either he took a hit in the gut prior at some point during the fight that we didn't see, and he threw up a little bit in his mouth and just still had some of that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Maybe it was a recurring thing, and so when he get punched, it just came out. Or he was so nervous or excited that he was over salivating. You know what I mean? Like that happens. Like sometimes, especially if you're really nervous, you think you're gonna throw up.
Yeah.
You know, your mouth starts getting real heavy with the fucking watering. It could be that, or
you know what? Maybe like put some water in between rounds and it was stuck in his mouthpiece. I don't fucking know, dude. It's the weirdest shit ever, though.
It's a
weird.
bizarre
Hell
amount
of
of
a
liquid
knockout,
coming
though.
out of
Holy
his mouth.
shit.
Amazing knockout from Belcher, making a statement at heavyweight here, and he might have just knocked his way into a title shot.
You would think, yeah. Yeah, it was hell of a performance, but that was the weirdest fucking spit knockout I've seen.
One of the craziest knockouts on record yet for BKFC.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the spin seems silly to me. Like, it's clearly not a conspiracy. I don't think it has any health reasons here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? People are saying it was scary. Like, no, dude, it was just a lot of liquid. Like,
yeah.
it could have been even the angle of the camera
Yeah.
where we're seeing a combination of like liquid coming out of his mouth, like spit, but also sweat from the blow getting whipped off of his face at the same time. Oops. Do you know what I mean? Like that happens, like especially if you're sweating a lot, you get smacked. It sprays all over the fucking place. It could just be a thing where the camera's catching it in just the right angles too. I don't know. I've only seen the one angle of the shot, but another solid event. You know, we're not going to go over a whole lot of their fights, but let's talk about this announcement that BKFC made for this fight for London. I mean, who is it, Paul?
Yeah, Michael Venom Page taking on Mike Perry, which is just a hell of a fight.
As the main event of the BKFC London debut, which is going to be BKFC 27, and that's going to be on August 28th of 2022.
Yeah, I can't wait for the build-up because MVP's shit talk is always great. Then Mike Perry's never short on the shit talk. But my biggest question is how we got here. Like, you know what I mean?
Talk about out of left field. Nobody saw this coming. Michael Venom Page is under contract with Bellator MMA.
And he just came up off of fighting for the title literally 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, and it took a controversial L. I mean, there's a lot of people thinking he should have won that title. And he is known, in case, you know, listeners may not be aware of who Michael Venom Page is, because he is a Bellator guy, so he does kind of fly under the casuals radar, but he is known for his striking. He has some absolutely, like, he's kind of like, in a way,
he's like Anderson Light.
Yeah, the Anderson Silva of Bellator. Yeah. Like, he's very reminiscent with his fluidity and his amazing striking ability. There's a little bit of maybe Israel Adesanya in there. He's that kind of style.
I think he's the closest thing I had ever seen to him is probably like Wonder Boy.
Yeah, he's like he's this type of fighter.
Karate style. Like.
His karate style, very, very fluid, very, very fast. And of course, Mike Perry making his second fight now in BKFC after leaving the UFC and getting a victory over Julian Lane, which counts for a lot in BKFC. You know, victory in Julian Lane and MMA maybe don't mean shit. In the BKFC, that was a very impressive fight. Very impressive W for Perry. And this is going to be crazy.
Yeah, this would be very, very interesting.
I mean, I don't
think people outside of the US2 also realize how big Michael Venom Page is over there.
Like, I believe he's 6'1", isn't he?
Well, no, I just mean like popularity.
Oh, popular-wise in London? Yeah, he's huge.
He's a big deal over there.
Yeah, he's like bigger than Paul Daly over there. And Paul Daly's still a big deal over there.
Just remember how big the event was when him and Paul Daly faced off. It was huge. So like now this and it being bare knuckle, like this is just such a smart business move by bare knuckle fighting to get this fight signed because this is gonna it's gonna kill it.
It's been several days since this announcement came out, and I'm not exaggerating. I'm still just amazed. Like, I cannot believe this is a fight that's happening in bare knuckle. Like, if this was MMA, I wouldn't really give a shit.
Yeah, because that's the difference too. Is like bare knuckle. There's been other fighters like your boy, the goat Artem. He was
Yeah,
fucking
Artem
signed.
Lobov, yeah.
Yeah, he was signed to MMA promotions and the BKFC at the same time. So maybe it's something like that with MVP, where it's like he can fight.
Scott
both.
Coker is just willing to do shit, it appears. You
I
know,
wonder
he's
if they're
willing to.
co-promoting though, is what I'm thinking.
Dude, I hope they are. I mean, I like anything that helps legitimize BKFC. I think that they are very exciting. I'm super stoked by this fight. I don't know who wins this. I mean, in MMA, I'd have to say MVP would definitely hold a fucking strong advantage here. But we have no idea how he's going to do in the bare knuckle cage, or whatever they want to call it, the rounded, squared circle, fuck ever.
But that's the thing, though. I feel like that's going to be the X factor in this fight, though. At the same time, too, because what we saw in Mike Perry's first outing in bare knuckle is his MMA style was still starting to carry over, and some of the stuff where Julian Lane had his most success was different moves and like clinches in offense and defense that is used more in BKFC than
sure.
it is in MMA. So that could be the difference here too, because you're gonna have two like guys who are coming pretty much more or less. I know Perry's now had technically two like bare knuckle fights, but this is still Perry's like first entrance into
Yeah,
this.
he's got the feel
realm.
of it so far,
Yeah.
but he's not. It takes a minute with bare knuckle for
Yeah.
most fighters.
And then if you look on Michael Venom Page's side, he does have kickboxing background and a boxing background and karate, and like there's all these different like striking combat sports that he's already had fights in. That I don't really think that the transition's gonna. I think it's gonna be more seamless, and people are gonna be ready for it. And I think he's gonna mow Mike Perry over. I think he's literally gonna whoop Perry's ass. To be honest.
I think he is too. I think it's going to be a yeah, like you said, mow him over.
I think it's gonna be just like a clinic, like style, like technically, because I just don't think, as maybe like profile wise, him and Mike Perry are on a similar level, but skill wise, I think it's so far apart that
No, and I don't think Perry's the guy that could handle MVP in bare knuckle. I don't know if MVP, and we'll learn a little bit when this goes down in August. I don't know if he has what it takes to actually make a prolonged stay in bare knuckle, but I think he has enough wizardry in his striking to befuddle Mike Perry in this instance. And Perry's still raw. He's too raw in bare knuckle. He doesn't know the shit.
What's the weight on this fight?
I think it's is it 170?
Is it 170?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
I thought isn't it 175?
It might be 75 over there.
Or not Belcher.
in BKFC. It's in that realm though.
Yeah. I just feel like in my head, Mike Perry is just not even close to the same size as MVP.
No, he's 5'8". I'm pretty sure Perry's 5'9", actually 5'9".
Yeah. But just in my head, I envision the reach being a real big problem for Perry. Because that's really MVP's biggest weapon.
I mean, we'll get into this more as it approaches, but that is the one place where it'll be an advantage for Perry is because they start at the scratch line and not in respective corners. So he doesn't have to go very far at all to get inside right from the beginning. And I would think if he was smart, he blitzes inside right from the fucking second of the bell and doesn't try to back off and stay at range and get a feel because he'll get picked the fuck apart.
I'll be curious how David Fieldman feels about how MVP is going to fight in there, because if MVP does what he has done in the past a lot, there's going to be a good amount of defense as being a part of his game plan. And in the past, we've seen Feldman call people out for having superior defense rather than going for the kill.
Yeah.
And so I feel like this is going to be a very interesting matchup.
And it's just such a different environment. I mean, maybe we'll get shocked. Maybe MVP won't be able to handle the no glove shit, and Perry will light him the fuck up. You never know. I mean, it is a different.
I just don't see that just because MVP is so.
I'm just playing devil's advocate.
Yeah, I know. I feel you, but I just being like, I just don't see it because of the just the differing like combat sports that MVP has experience in. Whereas like I still kind of view Mike Perry like this is kind of what we talked a little bit about the show before the show, but like I almost see Mike Perry as a street fighter still.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like he's never really had a long time in any gyms. He's never really had like a big team built around him. He's kind of been on his own, and he's wild, and he's girlfriend's his cornerman, and or cornerwoman,
coaching himself or
right,
whatever he's doing, and it's worked out for him to certain degrees. Yeah, I agree.
Just doesn't.
Well, we're definitely going to be diving into that more because, you know, our friend of the show, Connor Tierney's in the co-main event over there. He's fighting fucking Joe Elmore, dude. That's an amazing fight right there.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the co-main event. And Connor's a big deal over there in the UK as well. I mean, he was the current BKB champ at 165 before he came over here and put on just an amazing performance in his BKFC debut.
Oh, yeah.
And so we're going to be looking to have him on the show as this date gets closer to. And
one thing as of note also with that fight, that first fight Connor fought was his opponent was a last minute replacement and he fought up in weight class. So I'd be curious to maybe when we talk with him to see how he feels about the main event.
Yeah.
And possibly, you know, getting a fight with either of those guys next. Like that's one big thing about being the co-main event of this fight is like that sets him up also to kind of be like, you know, he's a newer face in bare knuckle fighting.
He's great on the mic. Yeah.
He does great on the mic. He was that knockout that he had in his first fight went pretty viral. Like it was pretty.
Dude, a lot of his shit, like his slips and dodges and dips and everything in that fight got some views.
Yeah.
Like he put on a clinic. So yeah, I'm pretty excited about that.
I'm calling out whoever wins it. I'd be like jumping on the mic right after him, like, where you at? Whoever wins the title, you know, the main fight.
Dude, I would try to get out into the crowd for the end of the fight and try and fucking wiggle your way into that fucking thing and talk on the mic.
Yeah, because that's one thing that BKFC allows. They
do.
like that shit. They like that shit a lot. They like doing the whole, well, the title fight's over. The number one contender, come step in the ring and see what happens.
They've done that on multiple occasions, had drama, and they don't seem to be upset about that drama. So I'm not suggesting Connor do something silly, but he should definitely insert his fucking name in there, like you said. Absolutely. We'll be looking to get Connor back on the show before August 20th. And then also joining us next week, we have got a fighter from Invicta. Who's that going to be, Paul?
Catherine Leonard. She's going to come on, talk about her upcoming fight on the next Invicta card.
Yeah, I think she's the co-main event on that card as well, right? So tune in, everybody, for that. Be sure, and thanks, everybody, for listening this week. If you're brand new to the show, you can catch us everywhere podcasts are distributed, as well as video on YouTube, as well as a host of other locations. We've got all that info and a bunch of other shit in one handy spot.
SWAT MMA.com, where you can head over there, click the gear button and support the podcast, and then head over to Instagram and follow us at SWAT MMA Podcast.
Thanks, everybody.
Peace.